Woo! Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday. It is 12 o'clock. It is time for Car Confessions. I come to you each and every week on Monday, fresh off the weekend, to talk about some type of car buying tip, tactic, or interview an entrepreneur as well, and kind of mix it up a little bit to see what makes them tick and what makes them different from somebody that punches a clock from 9 to 5, and what motivates them and what drives them. This week is episode number 29. And today's episode, I'm going to discuss 7 ways that you can get your teen a new set of wheels. And throughout this, I know I will have some controversy along this or about this, but what would a podcast be without controversy? But this is going to give you guys some ideas and hopefully some tips to take with you if you are in the market or soon to be in the market for a new driver or new teenager. Now, I've been down this road twice already, and I have a few years before I'm there for a third time with my youngest. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about was me before I did some research and before I really started doing this and got into the car business to really know what it is that happens behind the scenes. So number 1 is going to be educate them along the way. With just like anything else, while you're doing the research, you have to educate them and involve them as well. So you're going to have to set the expectations as far as, are you going to buy new or used? You have to have that talk. At least my wife and I had that talk of getting a vehicle is not a right, it is a privilege. Because you driving, the teenager driving to work, to school, to sports, that takes a lot of pressure and alleviates a lot of pressure from parents. So my wife and I were 100% on board with our oldest 2 driving and having vehicles, because we didn't have to try to find time off work that we could run them to their sports and their activities. So have that conversation, as well as discuss accidents and tickets. So if they get a ticket, whether it's a parking ticket, speeding ticket, moving violation ticket, who's going to pay for that? Is it going to be you, the parent, or them, the teen? So you definitely want to have that conversation up front and set those expectations, as well as educating them on gas, maintenance, and insurance. My oldest 2, for example, I paid the insurance for them for the first year that they had their vehicle. After that, they were old enough to work. They were working part-time. So not only did they pay their cell phone bills, but they paid their insurance after the first year as well. We would help them occasionally with gas, but for the most part, if they wanted to go somewhere, drive somewhere, they were using their money, their gas money. So number 2, things to avoid. And I could have put a number of things here, but I just kept it to 3. First one, for first-time drivers, teen drivers, large vehicles like trucks, SUVs are not ideal. Now, there are exceptions to that. I've known and know a lot of farm kids. They grew up driving tractors, combines, grain trucks, semi-trucks. They are going to be used to driving a larger truck or a larger SUV. So again, there's going to be exceptions there. Also with that as well, not buying junkers. My wife and I are guilty of this, as any new parent of a teen driver is, because you don't know how they're going to take care and how they're going to treat that first vehicle. So if you buy a junker that's something that you don't really care about, you don't care how it turns out or if they get into an accident. But buying that junker it's not safe, it's not reliable, and you may soon be in the market for another used vehicle. Along with that as well is the buy here, pay here lots. Those are typically older vehicles, higher interest rates, shorter loans, and they're not really doing you or your team any favors by selling you a vehicle. So unless that is an absolute last resort, last option, please avoid those. Number 3 is research and shopping. Like I mentioned in the first one, you want to get your team involved. This is going to be their set of wheels. You want to get them involved throughout the entire process. So having already set that expectations, let them go and see what they find and they come up with, because with that expectations, you're already going to have an idea of what you're going to spend as far as a budget or monthly payment. So give them an idea, just let them see what they come up with. And if you're looking for a $5,000 to $10,000 car and they come back with an $18,000 to $20,000 SUV or truck, you might want to have that conversation again, because who knows, things happen, but you got to reel them in, because they're going to be excited. They're going to be ready to go. They're thinking, yes, I'm getting a new car. I'm getting a new car. That's why you got to have that talk with them and set those expectations. Along with that as well is looking at something that's going to be reliable and go the distance. So, if they're getting their first car at 16, 17, is that car going to last them the remainder 2 years of high school as well as 4 years of college? Or will you be looking at getting a vehicle once they get into college, especially if they're going to be driving home on the weekends, or if they have other activities and other hobbies in their lifestyle that they want to look into? And along with that as well, I strongly recommend first vehicle something that is practical and has great fuel economy, because practicality is not cool, it's not fancy, it's not flashy, but the miles per gallon and the safety features are really going to be there, which leads me into number 4, which is the safety features. Remind the kids. I have to remind mine still. The oldest 2 are 22 and 23. I still have to remind them that seatbelts, you on YouTube are going to be able to see this. Seatbelts are not a suggestion. They are law. They will save your life. They will save your teen's life. So make sure you have that talk with them. Also with that, as far as safety, look at vehicles that are going to be new enough that have not only airbags in the steering wheel, the dash, but maybe some bolster airbags in the seats, some side curtain airbags for potential side impacts to really protect your teen driver. Teen-friendly options. What is a teen-friendly option? Bluetooth, auxiliary, USB, potentially even navigation, depending on what budget you set for them and if it's practical. That way, they are looking at an 8-inch, 8-inch screen, whatever the size of the screen is, compared to their iPhone, their Android, whatever they're using. So use those as safety features to help make your decision as well, so they can answer a phone by keeping their hands on the steering wheel, not have to look for their phone or answer it. Moving on to number 5. So what we've got so far, just a quick recap. Number 1 is educate your teens along the way. Number 2, things to avoid. 3 is your research and shopping. 4 we just covered is the safety features. So moving on to number 5. Number 5 is test driving. Let your teen test drive the vehicle. They need to know and have an idea of how it's going to handle it at low speeds, how it's going to handle at high speeds. If it's windy, perfect. That's a perfect day to go test drive. If it's raining, even better day to go test drive, because adverse weather is going to happen. At least here in Kansas where I'm at, we have all 4 seasons. Some of y'all may have different seasons based on your location, but here in Kansas, we have 4 seasons. So they need to know how it's going to accelerate, how it's going to brake, how it's going to handle drive, all of those things. So while they're driving, now is your chance to really play with the options that it has and ask the salesperson any questions that you've thought of from the walk around up to the test drive at this point. Number 6. Y'all are going to love number 6. Financial responsibility. Who is going to pay for this vehicle? Are you going to buy it outright? Has your team worked long enough and saved up long enough that they're going to buy it outright? Both of those are great options, and I love those options, because if you can't afford to go into debt with another vehicle, those are absolutely great options. A couple other things to consider is, are they old enough to cosign on a vehicle? Do you want to help them by cosigning and establishing credit? Now, different states will vary on the age, and you'll have to check your state. But if they are a minor, parent has to be on it, or at least cosign. By cosigning, that also helps build their credit. Now, I have done that with my kids, and they're not 100% aware of it. We'll get into that in the confessions portion later here. But have that talk with them. You know, if they're going to be contributing, or maybe they don't work enough to make the whole payment, so they're going to make half of the payment and you make the other half. You have to have that talk to know, is that an option? Is that the best route to go? And that way they learn some financial responsibility as well, because just like I mentioned with my kids, paying their cell phone bill, paying their insurance after the first year, have to get used to paying those bills. Number 7. Number 7 is where the controversy comes in. Don't get emotional. Now, we in the car industry love emotional people, because people buy on emotion. It's just what it is. And we, as salespeople, try to make sure that we establish an emotional connection with you and the vehicle that you're looking at, because it allows you to take more ownership, and you see you owning and driving that vehicle off the lot and in the future. So when emotion gets involved, it can potentially cloud your judgment as far as paying too much for the vehicle, not asking something about the vehicle as far as reliability, the history, maintenance on it. And it's a hard thing to do, to remove that emotion, because you want to make sure that you get the best deal, but you don't want to go too far on the emotion scale, that you go from, ecstatic, I gotta have it, I'm driving off with it right now, to I'm dead inside, and no matter what you say, I don't care. This is what I'm gonna do, or I'm gonna walk away. So having two different ends of the spectrum, because I understand everybody wants to stick to that budget and wants to pay this much, but if you haven't educated yourself and done the research, you may not know if that is a fair price on that vehicle. I'll use an example. Last week, I sold a truck to a guy. Sold it to him on Friday. He came in on Monday. On Monday, he was liked the truck. He wasn't ready to buy it because we were asking too much for the truck based on the age of it. Friday comes along, he comes back in, and different attitude, because he had removed the emotion from it and did the research. He knew that trucks with that year had 20 to 30,000 miles minimum more, and were about the same price as we were asking for ours with less miles on it. And it was a one owner, and it was an extremely nice truck. He got a hell of a deal. Beat me up on the price, twisted my arm, whatever you want to call it. But he got an incredible deal. But it took that time of educating and removing that emotion. So, and with that as well as you want to use the logic, reasoning, and research to make that decision, just like he did. Because the first time you go in, you may be ready to buy because that emotion gets in there. And also let me say this. We as salespeople want to sell you the first time you're there. That way, that's the only trip you ever make, because we want to make you a deal that day. I love when people buy on the first day, because a lot of them have done research. They know what they want. They know what they can afford. Does everybody buy on the first time? Absolutely not. And I understand that. I was a buyer before I was a seller. So I absolutely understand. So those are the 7 reasons. Just to recap again, number 1 is educate yourself along the way by educating yourself, your team, setting those expectations, and discussing the options as far as can you afford new or used vehicle. Number 2 things to avoid: buying junkers. They're not safe, they're not reliable, as well as the buy here, pay here, because you're going to be potentially buying an older vehicle with higher interest rate. Number 3, research and shopping. This is where you not only get to educate yourself of what's out there and what's reliable, but educate your team as well. So get them involved and see what they come up with, and give them an idea of what's reliable, what can go the distance, depending on where the age and where they're at in high school or college. Number 4 is the safety features. Seatbelts. They are not just a suggestion. They are a law. They will save your life. As well as airbags, Bluetooth options for hands-free, and if you can afford it, things like navigation, so hands stay on the steering wheel, don't have to look down at your phone. Number 5, test driving. Make sure you let that teen driver get behind the wheel so they know how it looks, how it feels, how it accelerates, how it brakes, and if there's adverse weather, that's a great time to go test drive. Number 6 is that financial responsibility. Are you going to help them? Are they going to do it? Are you going to buy it outright? Are you going to pay half with them? And just have an idea of how that's going to work. Finally, number 7, don't get emotional. Try to, as best you can, to remove that emotion from this buying process and decision-making process. I promise you, you will thank me for it later. So there's your 7 tips. And as is Car Confessions Custom, it is confession time. I mentioned earlier, if your teen is old enough to cosign or help them build their credit. I did this when both of my kids turned 18. I added them to one of my wife and I's credit cards. Now, just keep this between us. I didn't exactly tell them, because, kids find out they're on a credit card, then they want to go wild. But that helped build their credit, and eventually, I think I told them like 2 years later. So they've known for about two or 3 years now. But I did that to help build their credit, and then I gave them the card so they would learn how to use it and educate them as well. So just keep that between us. My wife doesn't really 100% know all that detail as well. So if you could just keep that between us, I would super appreciate it. So there it is. Episode number 29 in the books. By all means, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. And you can find this in the iTunes. If you're watching on YouTube, it's somewhere around here. I don't know where it's going to be. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button. Share this out. Tag somebody that could really benefit from hearing this episode and is looking for a vehicle. You can find me, like I said, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Matt Johnson Sales. And again, Matt Johnson, your better car guy, because your experience matters. I look forward to seeing y'all on the lot. Take care, guys. See you next week.